Patrick Antonio with the Water Quality Interviews Program. My presentation is going to be basically on, first part will be on basic program information, and the second half will be specifically to enforcement activities. This is some basic facts. The size of the reservation, basically have 39,000 miles of streams and 1,042 miles of that are perennials, meaning there's water there year-round. The rest of it is basically ephemeral or intermittent, and then meaning that most of the streams are basically dry most of the year until they're fed through rain events or snow events. And there are 7,853 lakes and poundments, basically little surface water features. And now EPA basically was started in 1972, and our program was started in October 1992. What our program basically does is we carry out the functions of the Clean Water Act on the Elimination. And the Clean Water Act basically was passed by U.S. Congress in 1972 with the goal of making all the nation's waters fishable and swimmable. In 1986, the Clean Water Act was amended. Basically, Section 518 was amended to allow Indian tribes to apply for treatment of state for different sections of the Clean Water Act. And the Clean Water Act, again, is basically geared toward protecting the waters of the U.S., which I'll talk about later. And the function that we carry on Navajo is Section 402, which is the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Program. That's basically if there's a discharge of waste, pollutant to waters, then you need to get a permit, an intravenous discharge permit. There's two types of permit. There's an individual permit. There's the construction or industrial general permit. On the Navajo, there are currently 32 individual permits for businesses or utilities to discharge on the Navajo. And for the general permits, the basic ones are the construction permit. Or if you disturb more than 1 acre of land surface, you need to be covered by the construction general permit. Section 303 is the water quality standards, which we oversee in Navajo Nation. And Section 401 is the certification regulations. Section 401 basically means if there's a business or a venture in Navajo Nation that requires a federal permit, like in 402 or a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers, and that permit needs to be certified to basically verify that it will comply with our water quality standards. And one last section that we worked with on Navajo Nation is the Mineral Point Source 219. That's basically where we work with land users, grazing permittees to address erosion control with livestock and from roads on these ranches and forests. The main thing with US EPA is getting treatment at state to carry on these activities. This is our history of our treatment state approvals. The first one was in June 1993. We got approval underneath Section 106. What this gave us was the ability to apply for funding, which makes it possible to run our programs. The second one was in October 1999 when we got treatment estate for non-point source. Again, that just means more funding to operate non-point source project grants. And then in January 2006, we got approval under 303 and 401, which is again the water quality standards and the certification. And currently in the process of working on our treatment estate and primacy for the MPDS program, Section 402. Under our treatment estate approvals, UCPA gave us authority to run our 303 and 401 programs under the main reservation, exterior boundaries of the main reservation, as well as the satellites, the Rama, Tahajale, and Alamo, as well as the trust lands with the Eastern Navajo. And what we didn't get also was the former Bennett Freeze and Western Navajo. But last year we submitted a supplemental application for treatment estate to obtain authority over these lands in the former Bennett Freeze area. For Eastern Navajo, if it's Indian fee land or land that's surrounded by Indian country, we prefer that UCPA be the authority instead of the state. For our program, these are the statutory and regulatory authorities that we have developed. The primary one is the Elimination Clean Water Act, which is the overall statutory authority for our program. It was passed in 1999 by the Elimination Council. They said that we developed these regulations. We developed water quality standards, which have been amended 3 times, and we're currently going for a 4th one. We try to amend those every 3 years. We have our EPA regulations, we have our formal certification regulations, and we also work with the uniform regs that applies to all the programs. It deals with rulemaking and permit procedures. This map just shows all the different waters, surface waters that are covered by our water quality standards. This is our staff from our water quality program. There's 9 staff, 8 field staff. And this shows that we have staff that have been here at least more than 6 years. In our core task for our program, which is funded again by the federal grant, we basically do field investigations to make sure that there's compliance with all our statutory and regulatory laws. We work with EPA permits. We do compliance inspections to make sure that the active permits of our nation are basically being complied with. We issue 401 certifications to all the different projects. We make sure that our water quality standards are being met. We do stream monitoring. We also do non-point source projects. And we also do outreach. And I guess for this presentation, it's going to be focused on enforcement, which we also do. Under Navigation, there's basically 2 types of enforcement that occur. There's coordination with UCPA, meaning that they would be the lead. It's a federal action, and we're there to assist them. The second part is when we initiate action on our own, it's a tribal Navajo enforcement action. These are examples of enforcement actions that were taken by USEPA, and it goes back as far as like 1996, where they issued 2 big orders against oil companies that resulted in fines of totaling almost $8 million. And since then, there's been other federal enforcement actions that deal with most of it is oil related, but there's some NPDS violations on the bottom. It's NTUA. Again, these are all UCPA led, registered to their system, and all the fines that are that are received during these federal actions don't come to Navajo, they go to the U.S. Treasury. And this is a picture of the mobile facilities near Anna, which is basically why they had to do enforcement action, because there was numerous spills, breaks in the pipelines, which caused us all this contamination. This one was in Lupton. They wanted to store diesel fuel in these tanks, but these tanks were made to hold water. So you can see what's happening, you know. Diesel fuel's coming through the seams. So they did an enforcement action to the owner. And this is also Lupton. This is the Swedish truck stop where they were having problems with storage in these tanks. And there were some tanks over here where they were overflowing and they weren't being taken care of. And they were having problems here with these pumps where there was a drain collecting all the spill that was getting into the drainage here. So there was again, an enforcement action against this facility. But for our own tribal enforcement action, it's all based on this. Clean Water Act, Subchapter 9, which deals with our enforcement provision. The types of enforcement actions that we can carry out are all listed here. There's administrative, which again involves warning letters on our request for information. Then you move up to notice of violations or administrative orders. Then you move up again next to the administrative penalty orders or field citations. The top one we get to is consent orders. That's just the most critical ones. There's also judicial, and these are basically, I guess, what we work through with DOJ and civil actions. Basically, it occurs if we don't get any results through the administrative, then we move to civil. In criminal, we haven't gone to that area yet. This flow chart just shows the process for civil enforcement actions. Again, there's a discovery of a violation. Is there a need to have a temporary injunction, yes or no? If no, then you go through the process. You need to take care of it through a phone call, yes or no? If not, is there a need for a warning letter? Will that work? If not, then you move on to the process where you go through notice a violation. If they don't respond to the notice violation, then you move on to the consent order. So this just spells out how we carry out our enforcement activities. For requests of information, it's basically telling them that we need to know what's going on. So please provide us with the information so we can determine whether or not there is a problem. And these are examples of past requests of information that we've asked for. Pine Hill School in Raymond, they were illegally discharging from their wastewater lagoons and didn't have a permit. ExxonMobil in Aneth, they had a problem with one of their wells, the oil wells, where there was a cracked casing. It was contaminating groundwater in the spring. In this BS oil operation in Tosadome, they had a problem with oil being released, so we had to ask for information. In NQA, they had an overflowing sewer manhole near Humboldt treatment post. So again, this is requested information. The next up is warning letters. If we do the investigation and we find out there's a problem, there needs to be some action taken. We basically tell them this is what we found out and this is what we need to do. And most of it is septic systems. So these homes, people just, for some reason, don't take care of the septic systems and it ends up overflowing out the septic tank, off of the leach field. There's problems with the sewer treatment at a school or a business, or you got sewer lagoons that overflow, or you got sewer manholes that have problems. Again, we always also respond to release of crude oil, whether it's at the well or if it's a broken pipeline. This is an example again of a faulty septic system where it's with the leach field, it's just releasing wastewater. Usually, send a letter and give them a certain amount of time to address a problem. What also happens too is not our action, but it's like if it's an N2A system, or if N2A is supplying water to the home, N2A has the option to turn the water off. These people will take care of the problem. And that's happened a lot.
So, Patrick, when you say that, you know, some of those leach fields,
Mm-hmm.
and then the homeowner has one of them leach fields leaking and they leave it like that, is it the homeowner's responsibility to clean it up, or is it the person or the company that installed the system, like NECA or N2A or whoever?
It's the homeowner, because usually, most of the time, IHS gets money to put in these septic systems, and they hire NECA to do the work. And these septic systems are put in with a 1-year warranty. And they try to teach you homeowners how to take care of it, how to deal with it. And let them know that after the warranty's over, it's up to them to take care of any costs related to maintenance or repair. And this here is an example of a treatment system. This is over at the BIA Lake Valley School, where they had problems with their wastewater treatment system, where it was allowing wastewater to come to the surface, and you could see the kids playing in the background. We issued a warning letter to the BIA, and they ultimately tried to take care of the system. What they ended up doing was just terminating what they were doing here and going back, reconnecting to the old sewer again. So this is taken care of. Yeah, this is a busted sewer manhole in Black Creek. You can see right here the hole where sewer is coming out, going into the Black Creek. We wrote them a letter. They ended up repairing that hole and disinfecting what they could find as far as whatever waste was accumulating. And this was over at Alamo. This aerial photo shows the Alamo community lagoon system. 2 cells, the 3rd cell. These are connected. What was happening was we were out there one time on something else, but as I was driving by, I noticed that there was water being released. And we know that this facility doesn't have a permit to release. So we issued them a warning letter saying that you're not permitted to release wastewater from this lagoon system. So they stopped it, and it ended up starting off a long process where they got funding to open up a new, bigger lagoon system. It's further, like a 1.5 miles further, and they're going to be closing these lagoon systems. And this is over in Red Mesa, where there was a oil company that had a broken crude oil pipeline, and it was bringing down this wash. We wrote them a warning letter, told them what they had to do, and they ended up cleaning up the spill. But there are cases where there's more action needed than just a warning letter. We issued notice of violations, examples of which are, again, sewer lagoons that weren't designed to discharge, but they are discharging, or again, releases of oil, crude oil, And again, dealing with septic tank waste. This is over in Pine Hill. This lagoon system wasn't designed to release wastewater. It was supposed to be total retention. But that was just for the school. But as you, I don't know if you've been on the Pine Hill, but they have a laundromat here, and a store. And they added more housing, and the school got bigger, so the community grew, but they did add on. The wastewater lagoon system remained the same, so they ended up releasing wastewater here. We didn't have a permit. So we would have known there was a violation, and they ended up applying for an EPA permit, which they do not have one. And this actually took back in 2000 and I want to say 3. This is their Shiprock, north or south of Shiprock. They had a company that paid some land user money so they could dig ditches and bury their septic tank waste. And they kept trying to say that it was okay because the landowner gave them approval, and they said, no, this is we issued them a notice violation, told them they needed to clean up. And they ended up basically cleaning up here and another pot that was maybe 100 yards down further, so. And this was a giant spill. I don't mean giant big, but the company giant. They had a pipeline that ran south toward White Horse Lake, and they had a leak that got so far down that they had to excavate way down. And the stuff you see is a product that's supposed to attack the oil. Right. Next one. And this is another oil spill. This is up in the Nipakea. You had a Mountain States Petroleum had a leak in the line, and there was no access for vehicles or roads, trucks. So you had a whole army of people working to remove the soil, full barrels or whatnot, and take care of the problem. This is again based on a notice violation to the company to take care of the problem. And the top tier of our enforcement is orders of consent. This is usually done by our lawyers. The first example here was back in 2006. Hart Oil and Gas had a history of problems with their oil fields, whether it was leaks from the lines, leaks from the pump jacks. They're just really being messy. So we ended up working with DOJ on an order of consent. And the second bottom two are basically what gets NTUA is they were not meeting their EPA permit. When you get an EPA permit, you're supposed to meet certain limits or standards when you release your water. You're supposed to test it and make sure that it meets limits. And they weren't meeting limits for a lot of their facilities. This bullet point here, we issued a notice of an order of consent for 6 treatment facilities. And they're still ongoing. You've submitted compliance plans and how they're going to address the problem, and now they're supposed to be implementing the compliance plan with final date of October 31st, 2016, when it's supposed to be implementing what they're supposed to be doing in their compliance plan. This last one is against winter rot. If you go back, if you remember back to the slide with the federal actions, there was one against winter rot. That started back in 2006. EPA issued an order against winter rot, saying you're not meeting your permit, and do this and do that. 2006, but nothing really happened. I mean, they were still out of compliance, still not doing what they need to do. So in 2014, US EPA came to us and said, can you help us? Can let's work together and try to take care of Winter Rock. So this resulted in us, now EPA, doing its own enforcement action. And what was different is that there was a $25,000 administrative penalty, basically saying you've been violating this for so long, and so we're going to give you this $25,000 penalty. So this is ongoing. Based on this order, they basically told us that we know that our own lagoon system is not going to work because we keep having violations. So we're going to go ahead and build a new plant for Winter Rock. That's what's going on now. They're going to be doing away with the two big lagoons. I don't know if you've been down there, but they're going to do away with that and put in a new treatment plant, which is currently in the initial stages of being used. So, yeah, this is just pictures of the hot oil and gas. Again, they were being messy. They didn't care what was going on, who told what. So you got a broken well and all the stuff was going off site, running off down the hill. Again, this is the Winter Rock treatment plant. The discharge point is over here to the Black Creek. They just weren't getting any good treatment in the process. These aerators would blow air into the water. It was supposed to provide oxygen to help with the bugs to kill the organisms, but it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working. So now they're, as you see here, this is the new plant that they're putting in. So it's going to run through here and run through the pipeline and come out here, but supposedly this is supposed to be a state-of-the-art plant and meeting their permit limits. The only two things I want to say at the end is basically for enforcement in the, I guess, more coordination with Navajo DOJ. Because right now, I don't know who they would deal with if you have an enforcement case with DOJ. Because in the past, this last enforcement order we had in NQA, we worked with our contract attorney, Jill Grant, but we don't have the funding right now to pay her. So who in Navajo DOJ has the expertise to help us in the event that we need to do another consent order. The other point again is just we need funding for our program, and one way again I mentioned before is if we go to Congress and lobby for Navajo to be treated like a state and be funded like a state, to have an annual appropriation like a state, instead of getting $900,000 a year as we currently do, we would be getting $1.75 million every year to run the program, which I think will go a long way to improving compliance with our Navigation Clean Water Act. Any other questions?